Remy is a communist. Cooking. Cooking is a lot of things. Cooking is an art form, it's work, and in Ratatouille, cooking is class mobility. Cooking is the one thing that unites the rich and the poor. Cooking is everything. And with capitalist exploitation and propaganda in the mix, cooking becomes a form of control. So, I recently took a second job dishwashing to pay for a new car because my hunk of junk broke down. And as a result, I've gotten to see a pretty intimate side of restaurant culture that I never would have seen. The work conditions in the kitchen are some of the most intense shit I've ever seen. Cooks don't slow down, they don't take breaks during dinner rush, and with the added pressure from mobile apps like DoorDash and Uber Eats, they're under more pressure than ever. Not to mention that depending on where you go, cooks really do not get paid that much. Some cooks are out here busting their behinds for like $16.50 an hour. So when Skinner told Linguini,
"Welcome to hell."
and hell it is. But you know who's also in hell? Remy. As a rat coming from the French countryside, or this movie's favorite way to depict poverty, more on that later, he's living in another kind of hell, a man-made one. Him and the rest of his clan, or his hood, are forced to eat scraps just like poor blacks were for centuries during and decades after slavery. And it's that history of food and tradition that has me ask my grandma every third Sunday of the month why the hell she's so dedicated to slurping down a pig's asshole and munching on some pig's feet. But she does it just like Remy and his clan does it because
food is fuel. You get picky about what you put in the tank, your engine is gonna die.
and when you can't get access to regular food or fresh food or kind of food at all, you're gonna commit crimes. You're gonna go steal that food. Answer me this. Would you rather starve to death or go swipe some shit for Walmart? Because I know what I'm doing. The only thing that stops us is that little voice in our head telling us it's wrong. But for Remy, it's the ghost of Gusteau. He represents capitalist propaganda turned into capitalist realism, manifested in a slightly overweight sidekick. But the values he espoused are that respect your masters, bootstrap mentality that we've all been fed to our entire lives. But nevertheless, those values are stuck in everybody's head. Like that one X-rated video I watched when I was like 10 years old of someone spreading open a woman's booty hole and eating cereal out of it. I mean, it's like they took brands and just went straight to the back of my eyeballs. I cannot unsee it. So in the opening scenes, we see Remy being that classic make it out the hood kind of trope that you see in every black made movie ever. A talented kid with the abilities that could open doors for him on the outside of the ghetto, but never actually being able to get out because of the rat race that bogs them down immediately after graduation day. Now, it's no longer, oh, you're talented enough to go get a scholarship and go somewhere for college. It's, we need you to get a job because we're going to get evicted otherwise. This should sound familiar in the context of Ratatouille.
And finding someone to replace you for poison checker has been a disaster. And nothing's been poisoned, thank God, but it hasn't been easy. You didn't make it easy.
Because of his ability to smell the nuances in food, he can also detect rat poison. So the very gift that would have let him escape the clan is the very thing that bogs him down within it. This is where Remy's obsession with humans comes into play, because he sees humans as having the ability to use their gifts in more ways than survival, in ways to create and to make, and you see for yourself.
I know I'm supposed to hate humans, but there's something about them. They don't just survive, they discover, they create.
This is just like the average person's obsession with celebrity culture and rich culture in general. Like people fucking worship Bezos and Elon Musk simply because they are rich. And in my opinion, it's the same reason why Remy loves humans. Poor people can't afford to live outside of survival. I'm broke as hell. I cannot up and quit my job to do YouTube full time. But I can do it on the side and attempt to make something good and quality for people to watch. Remy, like almost everybody else nowadays, see being rich or being human as the only way to truly be able to do your passions, do the things you love. But in reality, it's a piece of propaganda that rich people have bestowed on us, making us believe that we have to be rich in order to enjoy our lives truly. In Remy's pursuits to be rich, he kind of ends up endangering the whole hood and forcing them to evacuate. But that's his golden ticket. Being separated from his people is really the least of his worries. Since he's a picky eater, knowing what's rotting and what isn't, he hasn't eaten for days. What does he do? He goes to the surface to find food. Duh. This is where that capitalist realism comes into play. Because since he's a rat, the only food he can afford to eat is food he's stolen. And who gets in his way every time he tries to do so? Gusteau's fat ass. The movie by now has already established that nigga is a figment of Remy's imagination. So why would he not be like, yeah, bro, just go ahead and steal that food? I mean, fuck it, you gotta live too. It's because the version of Gusteau that Remy knows is propagandized. It's the version that he allowed himself to be on television. It's the fluffed up propagandized chef that told poor people that stealing for survival is wrong. But if you're poor, stealing food to live is really natural. It's kind of an everyday thing. Remember, crimes don't happen because people want to do them. Crimes happen because people have to do them. Let me put it into some context. Every drug dealer that I know is never a nigga that says, oh, I'm gonna be the next Pablo Escobar. It's, oh, I got a light bill due. Let me sell a couple fucking grams of weed so I can get this extra $30. The propaganda doesn't start and end with Gusteau though. It's also the movie itself and how it depicts rich people and poor people. Rich people as humans, poor people as rats. But the only exception being Linguini. Linguini is basically Trump or Elon or even Biden's crackheaded son. Basically, someone that would never make it in the real world if the capitalist system we live under wasn't designed for people to be so rich they cannot fail. Imagine if the game Only Up had a checkpoint right at the end, and every time you started a new save or had a kid, they also started at the end of the game, never having to play the bottom all the way up. Just like Elon, Linguini has had job after job, opportunity after opportunity, failing miserably at all of them. And the only ones that worked are when other people more skilled or more dedicated came in and took care of that issue for him. And because of his inheritance and family ties, he was able to gain tremendous wealth as a result. Even when the restaurant gets closed down at the end of the movie, Linguini is secure in his position because of the connections he's made as a result of that inheritance. The food critic would have never showed up unless Gusteau's was under new management, unless Linguini hadn't inherited it. Like, I swear to God, Tyler is only going to play with shit after you touch it. His relationship to Remy is a one-way street. The movie likes to play as though they both benefit from this system, but they don't. Linguini is the one whose reputation gets bolstered as a result of Remy. Linguini is the one who gets the new apartment. Linguini is the one who ends up with the girlfriend. Remy doesn't need a restaurant to be happy, but Linguini needs a better apartment. Linguini needs more money. Linguini is exploiting Remy's artwork. But Remy isn't the only one being exploited here. Gusteau, even after death, is also being exploited by two people, Skinner and Ego. Let's start with the most obvious. Skinner's line of frozen foods like burritos and corn dogs and Chinese food and blah, blah, blah is the most obvious upfront sign of exploitation in the movie. But Ego's is significantly more sinister and more impactful than Skinner could ever possibly dream of. It's hidden under the surface and affects every aspect of the movie that you might have not paid attention to. Remember, Ego comes from poverty, and when Remy makes the struggle meal of Ratatouille, that reminds him of coming from the French countryside, remember, poverty, with his broke-ass mama. Ego wouldn't be anything if he wasn't the one guy that shit on Gusteau. Without that review, Ego is nothing. He is a nobody. But even deeper than that, coming back to that point I talked about, how cooking, exploitation, and propaganda all come together to form control, it was Ego that dictated Gusteau's menu after his death. It's a review that made them stop cooking as art and only for work. The food reviews are pieces of propaganda in and of themselves. The only glimpse into that world that they get is through headlines and articles. Basically, what I'm getting at is food is how we interpret the world. So don't let someone exploit what you taste, what you eat, what you live, and don't let them propagandize the things that you consume, not just mentally, but physically, because that's how they control you. And until next time, keep your head on a swivel, my baby.